Top stories every hour, we trusted as real news. Reporters joined with power and left us all confused.
The biggest scandal of the Bush administration is the story of reporters who protected their access to top officials first and put their responsibility to the public last. The story really begins with Ambassador Joseph Wilson. Wilson was the acting ambassador to Iraq before the first Gulf War. When Saddam Hussein took more than 100 Americans as hostages, Joe Wilson stared him down. Saddam Hussein backed off and released the Americans. For that, President George Herbert Walker Bush proclaimed Wilson a national hero. Then that hero heard President George W. Bush make this statement in the 2003 State of the Union address.
The British government has learned that Saddam Hussein recently sought significant quantities of uranium from Africa.
A year earlier, the CIA had sent Wilson to investigate the uranium claim, and he knew it wasn't true.
The level of corruption that it has demonstrated from the top down is staggering to the American people.
So he wrote about it in the New York Times. That touched off a firestorm at the White House. Columnist Robert Novak tried to discredit Wilson by writing a story that Wilson's wife, Valerie Plame, who worked at the CIA, sent him on the trip. Trouble was, she worked as a spy for the CIA. Nobody was supposed to know she worked there. The CIA even told Novak not to publish that information. But Novak did.
What Mr. Harlow told me was, he asked me not to use her name, did not say she was a covert employee, and I still don't believe she was engaged in any covert activities.
Former President Bush was not amused.
Human intelligence, spies, is very important. It's pretty hard to get it if somebody working in clandestine service thinks his name is going to appear in the Times or the Post or any place else.
Deputy Defense Secretary Richard Armitage admitted he was the first to leak the spy's name, and he apologized for it.
Did you change your story?
But White House staffers Karl Rove and Louis Libby were also spreading the covert agent's name to reporters, at the same time assuring the president's own press secretary they had nothing to do with it.
They're good individuals. They're important members of our White House team, and that's why I spoke with them so that I could come back to you and say that they were not involved.
I went to both those individuals, asked them point blank, were you involved in the leaking of Valerie Plame's identity in any way? Both of them told me unequivocally no.
But Scott McClellan now says in his new book, Rove and Libby lied to him. And it turns out a lot of reporters knew it but said nothing.
And Scott McClellan, the White House spokesperson, gets up and he says Karl Rove was absolutely not involved. Well, there were at least 3, probably 4 people, if not in that room, that watched it live at various news organizations and knew that that was a flat-out lie because they had talked to Karl Rove about Valerie Plame and who she was.
The reporters were so eager for access to the White House, they allowed themselves to be used for political gain.
Using the reporters, in effect, to carry out their political mission. And that's different from cultivating a source to get information that's of value to you as a journalist. Here you are being used by the government official to carry out their political work.
Instead of clarifying the facts in this national security breach, the media just had a free-for-all.
I think the one that always, upsets Valerie the most is that she wasn't covert, which is just ridiculous.
Was she in fact a covert agent was never even proved.
There is no doubt that her relationship with the CIA was classified.
If you give the identity of a classified person, it doesn't mean diddly squat. You has to be a covert agent.
And I still don't believe she was engaged in any covert activities.
He knew whether she was covert or not from day one, and she isn't.
She's never been proven to be covert.
To endanger national security by outing a covert CIA operative for political purposes.
She was not a covert operative.
The CIA says that she was.
For the record, Valerie Plame Wilson was a covert agent. The CIA put it in writing.